So this is the beginning of my KTM 390 adventure. Big handlebar front end overhaul. You take a look at the bike. I've only had it for 1,500 miles, just like about 2 months, and I've already managed to break my stock mirrors, so I replaced those. I snapped off a handguard. I snapped off the breakaway section of the clutch. So I've been trying to find the limits of this bike. Oh yeah, and I broke 3 out of the 4 turn signals. There's the one remaining one. Broke those off. So suffice it to say, I've dropped it a couple times. Here's what we're gonna do. I also have a chronic arm injury that tried to be repaired, but they can only get it so good. So hopefully this new Flexx bar is going to help take out some of the pain in my elbow. And then while I was at it, I had them include their hand guards, so I got the whole system. By the way, there's some videos on YouTube about these things and about the challenge of tapping out to get the ends that go inside this that hold the handguard. I actually just asked the Flexx guys if they would do it for me, and for 40 bucks they were happy to, so I just had them do that. Let's see, I'm gonna put some of the new Oxford Heater Pros grips on in the adventure size. I got a Veridian cruise control because I just think that would be nice to have, and I only want to tear open the front assembly once. Here are my supposedly indestructible Cyclops LED turn signals. These also supposedly have some nice features where I'll get white lights when the bike is on, just like the front headlight, so I'll get a bigger headlight profile. Maybe I can avoid adding some additional front lights. Then they can function in 2 different ways. For the rear assembly, they can either be solid tail lights, or they can add additional flashing with the brakes. I think I'm going to use that method. Let's see. I earlier purchased and have been loving this one car stereo L200 wireless Apple CarPlay head unit. It's been great. If you're happy putting it on the handlebars, then the mount that they send you is perfectly sufficient. You have to look really far down to see it on the handlebars. I want to look up towards that GPS mount position. And I couldn't find very many GPS mounts that seemed like they would be able to screw into the back of this. By the way, there's a piece of tape on this. If you do get one of these units, there's 2 little soft pieces of rubber that are protecting some holes, and they don't want to stay in. So I'm taping them in there. It's really integral that you have this piece right here to hold all that in. And I wanted to use the GPS mount, so I bought this Motopumps GPS holder. It turns, so you can have it in standing or sitting position. It's really well made. Should be for $110. And I like that you can put the screws through from the back. That is what I thought I needed, so that I could screw into the screw holes that are back here in that standard amps mounting pattern. But this plate here does not nestle into that, and it seems like you really need that to keep dust out and stuff. Not to mention that, but they also have some rubber grommets that go all the way through for dampening. I don't know how much of a part that's been playing. I haven't noticed the screen jiggling, and so I guess it works pretty well. So I don't know what I'm gonna do. I may cut this off to get it to mount there, or I might just put it back on the handlebars. I don't know yet. Let's see. I got just some fork dust covers. I bought a Pro-Spec Easy Clutch Pro. Again, told you my left arm is all torn up, and pulling the clutch in is actually painful. This is supposed to cut the pull weight about in half, or at least by 40%, something like that. So I'm hoping I'm gonna put that in, and hopefully that's gonna help me out. And then last but not least, I've already managed to also scratch my TFT screen. So I just got some covers, some screen covers off Amazon. All right, well, I'll start and just show you relevant parts as I go through the process. There's already a lot of videos on how to take all this stuff apart, and I don't think I need to cover all that again. So we'll be back in a bit. Just a note about these really crappy little fender pieces. First, you should know that there's a little plastic piece that fits in that hole. It doesn't have a screw, it just sets in there. I heard it described before, but I never saw it photographed like this. And then the 3mm Allen key for the screw that goes here on both sides is the absolute crappiest screw. I completely stripped them out trying to get the Allen. Well, one I got out with the Allen key barely using the tinfoil trick, and the other one I had to use a grinder and cut a slot into it and then just use a flathead screwdriver to take it out. But they really, really suck. There's a bunch of collared screws like this that come out of holes here, and two more down there. And then the only screw that I have found so far holds the turn signal assembly in and goes in right there. All right, back to it. So I've had a couple hiccups trying to figure out the Cyclops Tuff lights. It's gonna work out, I think. They thought that giving me this connector, which is I think it's a KTM Adventure 890 maybe, they thought that was going to be plug and play with the front. This additional wire powers the always on light. Well, here's the one I unplugged from the bike, and you can see it is not the same connector. So I'm gonna have to do some retrofitting here. I think I'll try to use my old KTM connectors and clip off theirs and put them back together. Also, when you put the Cyclops light onto the stock that sticks out of the KTM 390, it only utilizes the whole part. It comes in much like the original with a nut on the inside. Couple things. You absolutely have to have a 14mm box wrench or offset wrench to be able to get over the wires and down in there to undo the old one and connect the new one. Also, when you take the old ones off, it ends up leaving this hole here, which I guess I'm gonna maybe get some black silicone or something to close that up so it's not a path of water into the electronics of the bike. Except for that hole, it looks pretty okay. Not identical to this part here, but acceptable. The overall length is shorter than the original light, but I think that's actually a good thing, that they don't stick out quite as much. So it's probably going to take me a couple days to deal with switching out the ends. By the way, the green end is your right blinker and the existing gray end is the left blinker. All right, here we go. Okay, so following up, to make this connection between the Cyclops light and the KTM 390, I took the original stock end off the light that I'm discarding and then wired those two together, and I'm using some heat shrink over that to protect it. This extra white one is a Y cable that Cyclops provides, and it will get tied into the ACC2 switched power. Because the bike already has spade connectors for the ACC2, I clipped off their barrel and just added a spade of my own. Once I do this to the other light, that should be the end of the turn signal for the front job. The shroud here is on quite tight, but it's not bolted in. It just snugly fits over. You have to squeeze the throttle cable in through one hole, and you need to squeeze the headlight, turn signal, plus clutch cable through the other part. The brake cables go through these larger areas. I have moved on to getting the new bars in place. That way I can get all this junk off of here. I did find that some cutoff clippers are the absolutely perfect tool for clipping these little plastic flanges off. I've already got most of them. So if you're doing the Oxford heating grips, I think a pair of these does make easy work of that. Now I'm still going to have to shave down this part to get it to fit, but wanted to share that. I started work on getting the Oxford grips to fit the throttle, and the method that I liked the best, I picked it up from somebody else on YouTube, was using a utility knife to shave. It seemed way better than the little bit of sanding I tried. Also, I do recommend covering that up with some tape. You're going to hit it and bump it a bunch of times. Next, I'm going to see about getting the new bars on. Jumping ahead quite a bit, I have the new bars on. I have the new Pro-Spec Easy Clutch Pro. Both of these things were quite a pain in the butt to put in. Not complicated per se, but time consuming to screw around with it and get it right. I had to detach the clutch wire at the clutch itself to get enough slack to get it out of that original housing and introduce this one. And I just sort of have it half-ass adjusted. Obviously I can't ride the bike right now, sort of because of that. But it does definitely feel a good bit lighter in the pull. Setting up these bars is also a bit of a pain. I am on a riser here. These risers represent about like a 7/8 of an inch taller than the original ones, which are here. So you can kind of see I measured just shy of an inch taller. That combined with the fact that the bars sweep up more probably got, I don't know, maybe 1.5 inches higher, possibly 2 inches, I don't know. Won't know till I go ride it. I could always drop it back down if it feels too tall, but I definitely did not need to buy a riser bigger than 7/8. Might not even have needed it at all. There's just not enough slack in these brake cable housings and the clutch activation line to make it very easy to get on the bars. So there's a lot of like getting it back to one side and taking one of these off and sliding it this way, then switching and sliding it back. Maybe there's a smarter way to do that, but I didn't find one. I also recall somebody mentioned, be careful when you take this clip off because it breaks really easy. Well, yeah, I broke it. I have not yet drilled the hole, so that's still something. If you guys have looked at other videos, you'll be familiar with the fact that there's a pin in there and you need to nestle that into the handlebar with a small hole. But it's late today and dinner's calling. I'll get to this tomorrow. Okay, made a lot of progress on the wiring harnesses. Here's an update. Show you the lights first. So Cyclops sends you this this white wire that's a Y that goes from each of their lights, and then ideally you hook it into your switched ACC2. By the way, here's the always on ACC1. You don't end up needing the ground because you get the ground from the turn signal ground. So they'll be always on white with the headlight, which I think is great. It's sort of like purchasing accessory lights without having to mess with them. Not quite as bright maybe, but still, I like it. And here's them flashing. And they are bright enough to me, I think, even in this well-lit environment. I don't have the rear ones on yet. So those work great. Go over a couple things. Here's the new switch controller, whatever they call it. Here's the old one. This might be up on eBay soon if anybody needs one. It's perfectly functional. So the existing one has two cables, blue and black. I didn't see much people talk about this enough, so I want to go over it. If you trace the old one down, you'll find the blue one's pretty easy to see. And then the black one that you end up using is tucked down here. And you can pop it out of this clip. In fact, you have to pop it, I think, out of the clip to get it to plug in. So those two are obvious right away. But their unit has a third piece on it that's clear. Let's see, am I talking about the right one? Hold on. Let's see. Yeah, this is no, that's not it. Where's it at? There's a third one. Yeah, okay. So it plugs into their controller unit, which is what that little box is, right? So that's the plug. That's the third plug that comes off of the cruise control unit. Then the computer has three plugs, one of which I just talked about. And then the other two end up kind of interrupting, going in between this one having to do, because this is what goes back to tell the fuel what to do. So you end up plugging in one of these wires here into that. And again, I had to take it out of that clip to get good access to it. And then the other part plugs into the part that you just unplugged from there. So it sort of interrupts it, puts itself in the middle. I chose not to take the gas tank off to route my wiring harnesses. I know that's in the standard instructions, but I found that this worked just fine for me. I'll show you what I did. I'm not telling anybody else to do this. Do it at your own risk, but I think it's going to work just fine. So I have three wiring harnesses I needed to fish back to the battery area. The one for the cruise control unit, the one for the heated grips. I haven't dealt with the finding a home for these wires nice and tidy yet. That comes next. But I did test them, and the heated grips do work. And then you've got, I've got my Carplay head unit. So I got those 3 wires, and I have all 3 of those zipped together right here, coming out from in between the fork. And then there were other existing KTM hoses or wiring that tucked in through here. So I think this is a pretty protected place. It took just a little finagling to get the canvas red plug through there, but it worked fine. And then you kind of fish them from here and bring them around inside. I have them, the 3 of them zip tied together again here. One little modification I had to make, this little, whatever it is, sensor plug or something, was attached to a hidden, just barely see it, zip tie, but it was done in such a way that there wasn't any room up here at the top. So I just clipped that off, ran the wires up, and then tied it back in. And I took the battery out, which was pretty trivial, and loosened up this bodywork here so that I could pop and get that much reach inside of there. And so then I fished the wires along at the bottom of this frame member. They don't seem to be in danger of pinching anywhere. And then I kind of route them up through this little gap here that you'll find when you remove the battery. Now, I thought I actually had a really tight access, because I thought I had to reach this plug, but once I took the CAN bus thing apart, I realized I actually have to plug it into this wire, which gives you several more inches to deal with. So I was trying so hard to keep this this braided hose, the one that goes to the cruise control, really snug. And I could have just barely made it there, but as it turns out, I actually had plenty of a few inches to spare. So that's how I chose to do it, and it seemed to work just fine for me. I guess that's all for now. I still need to drill the hole to get this to sit in properly, but I want to find the ideal location for it. I need to do a minimal amount of routing on these 2 wires that come off, one off each grip. That seems pretty straightforward. Then there's going to be a good bit of work getting all this wiring and the headlight housing and the turn signals, get that all back together. And then I'm well on my way. All right, back to it. I'm putting the housing back together, and I can't believe more people don't complain about this and why it's just me. But this bottom piece down here really sucks. Unlike every other part of the bike, it has these plastic ferrules to drive these plastic screws in. I already snapped off one plastic screw, and this little housing thing, or this little whatever, this expansion, is not holding its spot in there. It just won't take. I've been screwing with this for an hour and I'm super pissed off. I think I'm gonna just try to retrofit some sort of nut and bolt, I guess. But yeah, be forewarned. I'm having so much trouble getting this housing back together. I'm trying it a different way. I can't tell you yet if it's gonna work. But everyone has said take the 2 clamshells loose and bring them together as you push the light in. I just tried for a long time, couldn't get it to work. So I have completely attached this section. That allowed me to see exactly where the holes or the gaps are and make everything fit in there somewhere. So now I'm going to try to get the other piece to go back on, see if I can marry them. More updates. I got this whole housing put back together. I did not film myself doing it because I needed all my hands, but I got to tell you that this method I came up with of basically completely attaching this side of things and leaving this side off so you can see where all the gaps were, and then fitting all the cables in and then putting it back up and together. It worked like a charm. I spent over 2 hours doing it the other way, trying to bring the clamshell together as I put the light in. And when I just committed to doing it the way I just described, I had the whole thing done in less than 10 minutes. The rest of it went back together pretty easy. So if you're having trouble, I'd give that a shot. I have this all together, and I believe everything is working. Still have a few minor things to deal with in terms of just routing the grips, or the hand grips. God, I can't talk. The heater grips. So I'll be getting that done here in just a minute. I do want to share with you like a little bit of drama that I had dealing with this right side grip. The left one went on pretty easy. I didn't have any trouble with that, and put the glue on, and then was able to just shimmy it into place and get it where I wanted it. And I can get that. Actually, I don't think I have it plugged in right now, but it does work. I did test them out. This one, I had a bit of drama, so just be aware that this can happen. I had the glue on there. I got the grip halfway, and it started to sort of seize up on me, and almost thought I was going to get it stuck halfway on. I was able to put a lot of force into it and get it to turn, break loose, and then push it in to where I needed it to be. And I thought my problems were over, but they weren't. And some glue came out the back and got in between the spinny part of the throttle housing and the handlebar. And so it was just enough that when you push this down, it would stay and it wouldn't spring back. So I started worrying that I had glued my throttle together. I had to get the whole handlebars slid this way and bring the whole housing off, and found just a little bit of glue was on the metal of the bars, and I scraped and sanded that off and put it all back together again, and looks like it's fine. I also can't remember if I already recorded this piece of information, but I had a bit of trouble with getting the right location for the throttle housing and where I drilled the hole. I still need to actually attach all this, get that tightened up. But I had this in a vertical orientation. I had it matching exactly where it was on the old bars, but I didn't like it because of my wrist problems. I didn't want to have the full throttle be so far down. So if you notice, like, mine is actually cheated at an angle forward so that it doesn't have to roll down as much. Side note, to solve that same issue with my wrists, I also put this grip heater with the wire coming out just a little bit angled towards me so that I think I'm going to be able to get a little thumb leverage and not have to use all wrist strength, but I'll be able to use my thumb a little bit to get that turned. In any case, I drilled the hole the first time in the wrong location. I did not like it, and I drilled another hole where I rotated it back and actually in a little bit more. Those two holes are right next to each other, so we shall see if I end up having the bar break or bend right there. I don't think I will, because these bars are pretty stout, several millimeters thick of aluminum. But if I did, the Flexx bars allows me just to replace the piece that goes from here to here. So if that did cause a problem, I have a way out. But it's harder than you think to get that hole drilled right where you want it. And I think a lot about how far in it needs to go. It needs to match up just sort of perfectly with where your handguard comes in to bolt. And then about how far that, forward on the bars you need to put it. So don't make the mistake I made. All right, coming back here, you can see I have the new rear Cyclops turn signals put in. This isn't all bolted together, but I'm pretty happy with how these worked out. I'll just show them to you. So we get white lights by default in the front and a nice bright blinker. The camera seems to diminish the amount of brightness, but it's pretty bright. And then in the back, I get a red running light or a blinker. Or lastly, let's see if I can do this. There. And I also have it functioning as an additional brake light. The Cyclops light mounts up into the OEM housing pretty well. I had to clip off the ends of the cable of the OEM lights and wire them together. So preserving the original connection if I ever need to change this or somehow go back to OEM lights. But I do have them wired in. The Cyclops lights are pretty straightforward. Their black is I believe it's a black-yellow stripe for the KTM. And then their solid yellow goes into a gray on the right side of the bike or a green on the left side of the bike. Then Cyclops provides, each of the lights has a blue wire coming out, and they give you these posi taps where both blues go into the posi tap, and then you have to take the blue and use the posi tap to pierce into the switched ACC2. It works like a charm. I didn't have any trouble. I just had to slide it in there, and it pierces, puts a little tiny hole in it with a pin that reaches that power. That supplies this constant on red tail light. And then the Cyclops lights have two red wires coming out and another posi tap, and that needs to be tapped into the brake activation light for the rear tail light. And so you can see it happens on the KTM 390 Adventure. It's this yellow. Apparently some of the other ones, like the KTM either 690 or 790, use the brown, but on the 390, it's the yellow. At least on the 2024 390, it's definitely the yellow. And so I just tapped into that right on the cable where it comes out of the tail light, comes up here, makes this connection. The colors all seem to change on the other side of that connection, but because there's a little bit more room here on this side of the connection, it turns out that's the easier place to hook the posi tap up to it. And the way Cyclops described it to me is that there's a higher, I don't know if it is voltage, I guess, maybe it's amperage, I don't know, coming off the yellow light than the blue. And so that's what causes the lights to sort of ramp up in brightness when you activate the brake. You have the choice. If you don't want it to act as a running light, I could have left the blue posi tap off. If I had not wanted it to work as a brake light, I could have left the yellow one off, or I suppose you could leave them both off. They're totally optional, but I think they're great, giving you a better footprint in the back of the bike. Once again, these are brighter in real life than they appear on the video. Video seems to dial them down a bit. All right, now I just need to get things tidied back up and body work on and bolts tightened. It's all taken longer than I thought, but that's typical. And I guess that's all for now. All right, it's done. I'll give you some final thoughts on everything I put on. Let's see. I took it out yesterday during a brief spell where it was warm enough. Right now it's below freezing outside and the mountains are covered in snow. So I'm crammed in here in the garage. But the cruise control, first of all, that's freaking awesome. That's a game changer. I love it. I'm so glad that I put that on there. It's so easy to flick on and off. I mean, I'll even use it for a short distance. It doesn't even have to be on the highway, as long as I'm traveling somewhere with a consistent speed. But I didn't get on the highway, so I didn't get up to 75, but I had it up to 65 and it was working great, holding its speed, going up and down in the set speed, jumps 2 mile-an-hour increments, but it works perfectly. It's excellent. Just one thing to note is that when you do use one of the triggers that causes it to turn off, which is either the clutch or the front brake or a significant throttle adjustment, then it comes back on, or the engine braking comes on pretty strong. So you need to be sort of prepared for that. I did a few tests just to sort of see how dropping the cruise off compared to just like pulling in the clutch or braking hard. Like it was stronger than that. So pulling in the clutch is actually, if you're like cruising around at 65 and you pull in the clutch, that is a softer come off the power than dropping the cruise control at 65. So just need to be aware of that, but it's great. Let's see, what else? The clutch pull reducer, tough to say. I think it's better. I kind of don't love how it fits in here. You've added a significant amount of length, which is a good and a bad. If I didn't have this amount of length extra added to the clutch cable, it might have been a little tricky with the height of the bars and the new geometry here to make the clutch fit smoothly. So that problem goes away, but now you have extra cable to deal with. And this was flopping or buzzing quite a bit on the highway. I added a few zip ties this morning, so I don't know if that'll help it, but I suspect that it will. And then you just sort of have to put up with this extra loop. I still have clearance, so that loop doesn't do anything. It doesn't really get in the way, but it certainly is there. Did it help reduce the clutch pull? Maybe. You can see I broke off the edge of my clutch here. Again, it's a good and a bad. It's sort of like a custom shorty lever now, and it's pretty easy to do a 1 or a 2 finger pull, and my other 2 fingers don't get in the way. However, because you don't have that extra length, you don't have that leverage, that increases the pull. Maybe by putting this on, it sort of puts it back to the way it was, or maybe it's a little bit lighter than it was before. I don't hate it. I'm just not sure if I love it. I think it does help. And there's quite a bit of fiddling with the lengths to get the clutch to behave correctly. And it's almost like you have 2 clutches to adjust. It seems like you need to adjust this, and you need to get this completely set in its length, and then get this one completely set in its length. And you have to have them both working synchronously to get the amount of clutch pressure you want. Anyways, it's done, and I'll leave it. I think it's pretty good. Let's see, what else? These new guards are fantastic. I love how they did that. And I got it all straight from Fast Company as a part of the Flexx bar setup. Pretty happy with it. Let's see. Oh, the heated grips, another game changer. I really like them. I was driving around yesterday. It was 40 degrees, but then of course I'm moving fast on the bike and I had it on high, and it's hard to imagine that I would want it on any other setting other than high. I can also see, just like a lot of people have said, you probably want heated gloves also. This will give me a little bit of extra margin on some cool days, but if you're out there riding at anything below 40 degrees Fahrenheit, you're probably going to want heated gloves in addition to these. But I'm still glad I put them on. I'm still happy with them. Let's see what else. The Tuff lights by Cyclops. I do like the flexibility and I think the strength that I have here. So I think these are way better than the OEM. They were a bit of work and futzing with wiring to get them to hook in, but you know, hopefully you only do that once. One downside though is, you know, I do have that fast flashing that a lot of people get when they put on LEDs. And they give you a module, which by the way goes, it's hard to see, but it's like it's up in here. You'd have to take this nut off right there, and then it's kind of tucked up behind there. I pulled out the stock one and put on the one that they give you, but they didn't work. When I used that, it turned a solid yellow and stopped blinking. So to me, this isn't a big deal. I live in a rural area. I'm not doing much in the way of city driving. I'm rarely using a blinker at all. And so I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to let it blink flash. I'll talk to the guys at Cyclops and just let them know that for the KTM 390 Adventure, that blinker or whatever speed control, it doesn't work at all on this bike. But yeah, let's see, and I'll show them to you from the back. Again, I do like them. I will say one thing. I rode for a little bit in the dark last night, and when they're in just this auxiliary extra light mode, you get a substantial amount of additional light. So if you were sort of thinking about adding extra lights and sort of thinking about replacing your blinkers, it's a two birds with one stone kind of a thing. And I'm pretty happy about that. I don't feel the need for any additional lighting. So I'm pleased. I think that's about, I guess the one thing I still have left to do is put that new GPS mount on by, what are they called again? Grab it. Oh yeah, Motopumps. Okay, so that'll fit in here like that, but I'm gonna have to figure out some screws or some customization a little bit to get the one car stereo L200 Carplay unit. I need the right size screw, and then I need to figure out that gap I showed you in the back of the unit. So I'll figure something out. It's not a huge priority for me, but I do think ultimately I'm gonna like where it sits in here, and it's tucked in there pretty well, better than I think a lot of the other solutions, which would push it further out. And I also don't really want to put it in here. So yeah, so I'll find a way to make this work, but it's not a gigantic priority to me. All right, I think that wraps everything up. It was quite a job. It took me good chunks of time over 4 days to do it all. I'm sort of slow and methodical. I'm sure it could have been done faster, but yeah, anyways, there it is. And I hope these tips, tricks, and problems I ran into can help somebody else. Thanks. Here's a little bonus section for anybody thinking about doing a brake pedal modification, one of these like nice CNC choices. I've gone through 3 of them, and I wish I had jumped straight to the one that I have on there now. I'll tell you why in a second. So first I thought that just being bigger would be the way to go, so that it would just be easier to get to it. And then I sort of realized once I actually had the foot pegs from Nice CNC on there that it was really, this was too high. And so I bought the step down one, which is actually pretty good. I played around with the throw of the brake pedal, and I think I do like this one. I like that you can kind of step on it up here high, you can step on it down here low. So I liked that one. However, you might notice that I've bent the crap out of this arm, and I've done it more than once. If you're like me and you drop the bike a good bit, that to me then the only real viable choice is this. If I'd have had this from the get-go, I don't think I would have bent this, at least not as badly. I first bent it when I still had the stock one on there. And so, I mean, these already flip out of the way in a lay down event, but I wish I had just gone with that one to begin with. And I have tried to use some channel locks and bend this back. It was actually worse than it is right now. You can see it's pretty tweaked. I see myself needing to replace this arm to get this, but I kind of have it at least working now. So I prefer the flippy kind. There shouldn't really be any other kind in my opinion.